So the next one is, who are your customers? And you have to have answered the first question comprehensively with quite a bit of thought to be able to then move on to the second one. Because you can give a superficial answer to the first question, and then you get a superficial or only a partial answer to the second question. So, you know, these are questions that you might want to take some time about thinking about. So you answer the first one, you know, comprehensively, and often then that comprehensive first answer will make you realise that your instinctive answer for the second one, who are your customers, is only a partial answer, and actually there are other branches which you may not be servicing at the moment, or your vision or your idea may not have actually incorporated you delivering products or services to those customers, but nevertheless, you know, they are, if you like, they are a market or a segment of your market which you've just discovered, and they can be on your to-do list. Either you might have to, you know, modify your marketing or modify your product or service structure a little to access them, who knows, but nevertheless it's identifying that there is another opportunity, another grouping there which you could service well through your offer or your offers. And so understanding and quantifying what they need and thinking, okay, well that's interesting. I can't deal with them now, but I can build them into my business plan, so that I know that you know, year one is going to be perhaps building, you know, on my core customers that I already kind of identified. But I now realise that there's one or maybe two other groupings that I should get to at some point. So I'm going to make those, I'm going to get them into my business plan, and they're going to be a year two project for me. Once I've got going with my core group, it's going to be a year two project to see if I can branch out a little bit. And of course, as we've talked about previously, if you don't put all of your eggs in one basket in terms of customers, you know, if you can branch out a little bit, so you are serving other segments, it can help when your competitive environment throws you a little bit of a curveball, as it were, and it could maybe impact your core customer grouping. Well, maybe then the second or the third customer grouping won't be so impacted, and can allow your business to ride over those kind of challenges a little bit more effectively. So you ask the question again, then, who are your customers? And you maybe reveal to yourself some more groupings or segments than you'd originally envisaged. So having done that, then you'll think, okay, so those are the customer groups, right, what are the so-called unfulfilled needs that I'm trying to service or to satisfy via my product or my service? And so you really have to put yourself now in your customer's shoes, and it may be that you segment your customers, as we've just said. You may say, okay, I'm going to think about the core group now, but I know that in my business plan I need to put myself in the shoes of customer group 2 and 3, you know, in year 2 of my business, and I really need to get, you know, under their skin and understand what it is they need, where there's a gap in the provision to them, which I can fulfill, you know, in such a way that they perceive high value, and that value translates into a selling price of my product or service, which will sustain my business through profitable income. There's no point in actually finding a niche or an opportunity for which people expect things free or at virtually negligible cost, because then unless you can tap into some other funding stream, you know, you're not going to make a profitable business from that, and all it's going to do is going to draw your time into something which is not actually advancing your business in terms of profitability and growth. And so, as I've put at the bottom there, because you're trying to get into the mind of your customers at this point to understand what it is that the gaps in their provision as they perceive it, and it's only their perception that counts, not yours. It's only their perception that counts, and the value that they base upon any perceived missing elements to what they can access. That's the only thing that really matters. So, you know, for that element, regular discussion, consultation is advisable. And that can be as simple as, you know, when you're working with a customer, just have a you know, almost an off-the-cuff chat with them, you know, every couple of months, and just say, you know, what's happening in your industry, where do you see, you know, hopefully we're getting on well, but where do you see the challenges, you know, what's coming over the horizon for you. You know, we're keen to actually try and make sure that we, you know, we continue to address your needs. You know, what is it? What, do you see anything coming up which, you know, is going to is again, there's a gap in provision for you. And most business owners will respond very, very positively to that, because they understand, you know, what you're trying to do, that you're trying to continue to provide excellent service or excellent products, which are fulfilling, you know, the unmet need, and that they're pleased to hear that, because you're demonstrating to them that you're looking to grow with them as a supplier or a provider of services. And that's great. You know, as a business owner, you would want to hear that. You want to know that your supplier or your provider is interested and is engaged with trying to continue to provide, you know, exactly what that business needs, and that, you know, that's what you want to hear. So most, you know, even if you do it off the cuff or gently or more formally, even more formally via, you know, a questionnaire or a focus group or whatever it might be, but most of your customers would be keen to help you, because they know that, you know, what was driving that it's a requirement, it's a desire to actually continue to provide value to the business. So quite a lot of talking there, but the essence of this is those 3 steps. Take them one by one and really do them exhaustively. Do the first one exhaustively, and when you have that, you do a bit of a mind map. A mind map might be a good way of doing this, whereby you have, you know, your core strengths perhaps in the middle, and saying, you know, these are genuinely the core strengths of myself and my team. And this is the business, and from that then you can say, what is the business that I'm in? And that might even be a little kind of ring around the core strengths, because you might actually be, you know, effectively in more businesses than you think you are. And then from there you can branch out into your customers and then the needs. So mind mapping might be a way of having a go at this. Any questions on? Okay, so if we just try to crystallise that a little bit, if we considered 2 companies, 2 sort of theoretical companies. So the first one is a product manufacturer, and they make small wind turbines, doesn't matter what type, small wind turbines, but they're for domestic, for home, and for light commercial. And the other company is a call centre, outbound, okay? An outbound sort of tells you something. So they're an outbound call centre with, you know, everything they need. There's a fully trained staff, one infrastructure, they've got everything. So if we take the first one, so what business is that company in?
Sales.
The wind turbine business.
Oh, sorry, I was on the outbound.
Yeah, the top one.
Energy.
Yeah, so they're in the energy generation business. What else? What other business? You know, how else could you frame what they do?
Renewable energy for the domestic market.
Yeah, so it's renewable energy. So not only energy generation, but it's renewables. You could say they could be part of the green revolution. And they could, particularly when you talk about home users, they could be part of an eco-lifestyle movement. You know? They could also be part of, you know, every week we hear about energy bills going up. So it could be part of not only energy generation, but individuals' attempts to manage their energy, manage their energy use, manage their energy costs. So you know, you can think that although those all sound similar, there are actually subtle differences in those sort of 3 or 4 we've just mapped out there, and they could mean Each of those could mean slightly different marketing approaches, and they could mean that you can actually try and reach out to slightly different customer groupings. If we were to say, that would be perhaps for domestic. What about for light commercial applications? What businesses, from a perception of a commercial operation business, so if a commercial business is your customer, what sort of business are you in from their perspective? So you could be you're in the capital equipment business, because these wind turbines can be 20, 50, 100,000 pounds. Particularly for a light commercial application where you're having to generate reasonable amounts of power. Typical wind systems for commercial might be £60,000. If a farmer's going to put one on to try and run their milking parlour, they'll often need to be spending about £60,000 plus on a wind turbine, which can generate enough power to be able to make a worthwhile contribution to running things like milking parlour. So, you're very much into capital equipment there. You're a capital equipment vendor, and that brings with it, methods of operation. So it might mean, if you really wanted to get into that type of market, you might recognise that you're going to need to be pretty strict with doing tenders. Private sector tenders, maybe public sector tenders, because big projects like that will often, relatively expensive projects, might well get tendered. At the very least, you might be looking, you might be needing some kind of financial services behind you to allow a purchaser to manage their purchase cost over time. So again, these throw up ideas about how you might need to structure your business, what could be part of your offer. Not only, if you come along, you can imagine two turbine manufacturers go to the same customer, prospective commercial customer, and one says it'll be £60,000 and I need a cheque from you, for the full amount. And the other one says it'll be £60,000 and I have a range of finance terms. Some of them only require a small deposit with the payments over 4 years. You've immediately differentiated yourself with the second offer, made it more attractive, you made the payment terms easier. And that's come from understanding the business that you're in. You're in the capital equipment business, and you're talking like a capital equipment supplier, and you know what you need to do to differentiate yourself in that circumstance and add a little bit of value or make your offer more appealing than a competitor who hasn't really thought about it. So you're in the capital equipment business. You might also be in the energy security and stability business. Okay, maybe wind isn't always the best example, because you can't always trust on the wind even in Pembrokeshire to deliver power. But if it was solar, and these days solar is getting better and better at making power from even grey skies. And you could argue that what you're doing there, we've talked previously about variable cost. What are the fluctuations or the unknowns or the variables in variable cost of manufacture? And so if one of those is, if you have a product which requires a lot of energy in its construction, then energy is a serious issue to you. And so by having your own on-site electricity generation, you're helping to mitigate or to reduce your susceptibility to variations in energy prices. So you could argue that you're in the energy security or stability business. And again, for bigger businesses, you could be in the carbon trading, the carbon credits business as well, because by allowing companies to generate, they may be able to get carbon credits. So just thinking in those ways, you can perhaps already see that that you think a wind turbine, you stick it up and it makes energy, and you just offer them. But by thinking about what business you're in, it helps you to understand why it is that it gets the beginnings of the understanding of why a customer might want to come to you, why they might want to buy your product, for what purpose. And it helps to start, you get a feeling for how you're going to approach these people, how you're going to market to them, how you're going to get an offer which gets under their skin, which they feel is attractive, and hopefully more attractive